Welcome to the Wrong Advice Podcast. I'm your host, John Picciuto, and I'm extremely excited to have a good friend of mine, the spawn of Satan himself, Scott Modrzynski, on the episode today. Scott, how you doing, buddy?
Doing good, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, thanks for being on, Scott. Obviously, we've been talking about this for a few weeks. It's kind of fun to finally do this. Why don't you introduce yourself to the listeners real quick?
Well, I am currently a graphic designer. I work in advertising. Got a history in sports as well. Used to work for the New Jersey Devils, and that's where you and I first connected years ago. Well, we first really connected, even though we kind of crossed paths, like shits in the night before that, I think. I hate even describing myself that way. Like, I'm a graphic designer. Like, I don't really even know, I feel like who I am anymore. Because that just doesn't really
define you
any sort of at all, and I don't know how to define myself. It's such a weird question. Like,
I was planning on going Scott Modrzynski, father, son, brother, husband, spawn of Satan, but I think I missed it.
I think all those things are true, and maybe it's time to re-record.
No, it's okay. We're gonna keep it going.
No, I honestly, I feel like if I were to truly describe myself, let me start over. Skip all that other crap. I think I'm just like chaos incarnate, and I don't mean that like in a grandiose way, as much as it sounds that way, or even like I'm bragging, but like I am just chaos just follows my wake. Like, is in my wake everywhere I go.
How much of that do you think is karma from the equal amounts of pain and trauma that you inflicted on your family as a youngster? 50% at least?
I think about that a lot. I think about stuff like that all the time. And there has to be a correlation. And when I'm feeling self-pity, I just say, you did this.
You did it to yourself.
This is your bed. Sleep.
That's fair. I did want to talk about, shits in the night aside. Obviously, we knew each other before working together, but we really became friends when we were both, employed with the Devils. I was talking about it with your brother when I had him on the podcast about how much fun we had even before we worked together, going to games, at Continental and whatnot. And I have one extremely vivid memory of our time working together, and I'm curious if you remember a certain sandwich that you ate at a certain restaurant.
Oh, I do remember that, and that's only because it was my last day.
It was your last day.
Yeah, we were at Hobbies, which is a great place. I wish I could go there right now. I wish I could go to a lot of places right now.
I set a reminder for myself over the weekend to get lunch at Hobbies because it's really the only chance I have to go, like on the weekend. And I didn't do it, but it's glaring at me on my phone. Like I haven't marked it as completed, and I didn't delete it yet because it's something that I really need. Yeah.
You know what? Maybe I'll sneak out and go.
We should go. We should meet up.
Well, I know exactly you're going to tell me no, but maybe I'll go anyway.
Well, it is a lengthy drive.
What's that?
I said it is a bit of a lengthy drive.
Yeah, it's a hike. It's a hike now for me. I mean, everything is tough. I mean, that to me, I think is part of my... I think you caught me at a really weird time. I think I'm in the midst of a midlife crisis, to be perfectly honest. It's tough living out in Long Island where there's really only one way in, one way out, and everyone I know is somewhere else.
Yeah. Well, the LIE is not a fun place to be, that's for sure.
It's unforgiving.
You mentioned that you're having a midlife crisis, and I thought it'd be interesting if we took a very brief dive into your next career, because while most men who are about to turn 40 are thinking about retirement, it's on the horizon, a mere 25 years away, or their kids going to high school. Obviously, you've got two little ones that, what are they, 5 and 2, 5 and 3?
They're a little, they give around there. Yeah. I don't want to get into my kids too much, but they're in that realm.
Fair enough.
They're young.
So while most people are just like easing into the late stages of their working career, you did something crazy and decided to join the Navy.
Yeah, and I mean, first of all, I don't know anybody at 40 who's thinking about retiring.
Well, it's like,
So
you put in your 20.
that just shows what I've done wrong. And you say, a mere 25 years away. A mere 25, that's a freaking lifetime, dude.
I know. But like the last years felt like 25 years, and I felt like the previous 10 felt like one. So it's all relative.
It's weird. But no, I mean, I did. I joined the Navy. I'm currently employed, like I said, as a graphic designer, and a senior designer with, a well-reputed ad agency. I just have, right now you can go to Bic.com and look at some of their banner ads. I made those.
That's very cool.
For better or worse.
I mean, I think the listeners don't know, but my affinity for your artwork goes without saying. I think I own easily 12 plus pieces of your artwork. I have had multiple people purchase stuff from you. I mean, I just think your talent is off the charts, and the fact that you're not like...
Well, man, I appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. I mean,
and that's the funny thing. So, like, the work is so stale in terms of artistically speaking that I paint on the side. I'll make, like, collages, which makes me sound like a 5-year-old boy, but...
No, the collages are my favorite thing that you do.
They're way more detailed than it sounds like, I feel like. And more intricate. But I do all that on the side just to kind of scratch that creative itch, because I don't really get that at work. When you're working in corporate, there are perks, and the perks are the medical insurance, dental benefits, 401k, matching contributions, blah, blah, blah. That kind of stuff. It's like the long-term security. That's the benefit of working corporate.
Sure.
And there's a lot to be said for that, especially at my age now with a family. Like, there's value in there. There's a lot of value there.
Absolutely.
But the flip side is you're answering to masters. So, this is actually funny. We were working for one client, and another big corporate place that everyone has heard of, right? It's ubiquitous. It's stuff you use every day. This place makes products that you would use. They wanted to do a promotion.
Paper.
What's that?
Toilet paper. That's my guess.
No. They wanted to do a promotion for 420, but they didn't want to overtly say 420 and come out as if they were supporting marijuana, smoking weed, or whatever.
Sure.
But they were just trying to be coy about it. So they wanted it both ways. So I remember and this just involves like getting images. You're just finding stock photography, and then you're just overlaying, with a little bit of retouching, which is not my cup of tea. We have other people for that. So I would find the image, inlay the copy, and then if we needed retouching, the retouchers would do what they needed to do with the image. So my top image, I had a few, you always come up with a few options, was I had these 2 ceramic lawn gnomes, and they're passed out. They're sleeping on mushrooms in the grass. And I'm like, I'm sorry, this is the 420th thing you could do without saying go get high.
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny, it's cute, and it got killed because it was that was too risque. And I'm like, dude, really? This? Like, this is as innocuous as you're going to get. Unless you just took an outside shot of a van, and we're not working for Dodge, so I don't know what the point is.
Yeah, I hear you. I found that a lot of the common themes that I reiterate a lot on these conversations that I have with people are how much at my younger age I wish I had an opportunity or even was forced to try more creative avenues, because obviously I'm 35 now, but I feel like I'm just hitting my stride in finding the confidence and the passion that I have for things like photography and this podcast. And it's something that I wish I had done, way earlier.
Yeah, it's funny you say that too, because I feel the exact same way. And being a few years older than you, this is going to sound like I'm like tooting my own horn, but like I was pretty smart growing up. Shit always came easy. I was decent at sports. I was really good in school without really picking up a book. I remember I had a semester in college. I bought no books and got straight A's that whole semester. It was actually my best year.
That doesn't surprise me.
So I just coasted through life. And it got to a point where I just woke up one day, probably in my late 20s, and I realized people who I would consider maybe not as, and I was always artistic, people I would say that are not as talented as me were ahead of me, in their careers, financially. And I'm really not somebody who really is motivated so much by money.
Yeah.
But it still stings a little when you see people that,
you're smarter.
I could do what they're doing, and I could do that better.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that guy getting that? Why is she getting that?
Mm-hmm.
And because I was lazy, because things came easy to me, that I just coasted. And so I found that honestly now, it's probably close to 10 years now, I really kind of doubled down and kind of tried to play catch up.
Mm-hmm.
And like you say, doing the things that I should have been doing 10, 15, 20 years ago, like I'm doing them now. And it started actually with, I don't know if you remember. Do you remember Fugos?
Of course I remember Fugos. That was the next thing I was going to bring up, because the way that your brain works is, I mean, granted, yes, you're an intelligent person, but it is so unlike, or doesn't, it is so unlike any other person that I know in my life. And it starts with weird shit like Fugos, which is just such a harebrained idea. And for people who are listening have no idea what we're talking about, Scott literally spent hours and hours on a Saturday or a Sunday making sports logos out of food. So off the top of my head, a peanut butter and jelly North Stars or Calgary Flames logo.
That was the Ottawa Senators.
Senators. Okay.
And for everybody listening, it was 16 slices of white bread arranged in a 4x4 square, and then basically painting on them as if they were the canvas this logo in peanut butter, grape jelly, and probably strawberry jelly or cherry, some red jelly, but probably strawberry.
I'm gonna link that image in the show notes just to your portfolio so everyone can see it, because it is so detailed and so good and so bizarre.
That one specifically was retweeted by the NHL themselves.
I know. I remember you texting me when it happened. You're like, dude, the NHL just retweeted the Senators logo out of peanut butter and jelly.
But dude, yeah, that was a great project. I mean, I started with hockey, and I wanted to get all the teams, but some of them were harder than others. Like, I specifically remember I never did a Rangers one.
Yeah, obviously.
I tried.
You did do a Flyers one.
I tried. I did Flyers was one of the first ones I did, and that Flyers one actually, I think, was in Sports Illustrated.
It was.
Because that's the thing, these things got picked up, and it had its 15 minutes of internet fame, which translates into 3 minutes of somebody saying your name in real life, and that's it.
It is, and I think you and I relate to that. Obviously, I had my 15 minutes of internet fame when I was writing for like Elite Daily back in the day, and I do have a bit of regret and or remorse that like I had a moment, and maybe you could agree with this. I had a moment that I felt like something special was on the cusp of happening, and maybe I didn't push hard enough. Maybe I didn't try to reach out to enough people or really strike while the iron's hot. But 7-8 years later, there's nothing that came of that. Like, it was a cool 5 minutes. I got my 1 million likes. I got a bunch of different cool opportunities, but like nothing.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, for me, and this is the fun thing about art, especially visual media in general, is you never know when it's going to hit.
Mm-hmm.
And even if it hits, as like we say, Fugo got its 15 minutes, it hit and then it went away. Every now and then it comes back, and guess what? That's still in my portfolio 10 years later. There's a lot of stuff in 10 years that have come and gone from the portfolio, but that has remained.
Mm-hmm.
The press, I mean, there was legitimate mainstream press.
Yeah.
So stupid. It was a slow news year. Honestly, in 2017, not getting anywhere. Fugos isn't going anywhere. No one cares.
Yeah. Too funny.
But in 2010, hey, it was a simpler time. But that stuff, it never really goes away. So that's cool. I actually had an offer last year. I don't know if I've ever said this out loud to anybody. This was in March or April, so almost like a year to the day, from ESPN.
No kidding.
To create Fugos of all the NFL teams ahead of the schedule release, which I want to say was either early or mid-May. So there was like a 3, maybe 4 week turnaround. It was tight.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never done more than 3 of these in a single weekend. So to have to do 32, it came out to like doing like 1.5 a day.
Oof.
Every day. And that was tough. Number 2, it was mutually killed on both sides because that, again, early pandemic, we were having food shortages.
Yeah.
And I brought up the issue of food shortages, the very real at the time fear of what happens if I get coronavirus looking for freaking hash browns. You know, for an LA Rams logo or whatever.
Yeah.
And on the flip side is I was upfront. Every time I've made Fugos, all of the food gets eaten. I don't throw anything in the garbage. So 16 slices of white bread covered in peanut butter and jelly, I ate it all. Maybe not in one sitting, but I ate the whole damn thing.
Yeah.
Over-seasoned meat, like, you know, there's a Devil's logo with spaghetti and tomato sauce, and there's oregano all over the plate. Just so much oregano. Absolutely ruined the meal. But I ate the whole thing.
Good for you. I like the dedication.
So it doesn't get wasted. But the thing is, people don't really know that. And what were the optics going to be here? We're in a food shortage. We're in a pandemic, and you assholes are making shit out of food. You're making logos out of food, and you're throwing it away.
Yeah.
You know, it was going to look bad. So
I think that was the right move.
Like, you know, this isn't the right time. This isn't the right time.
No.
For both of those reasons, the timing, literally timing, and then the timing with the pandemic.
I think that was the right
But
move.
you never know when these things hit again. You know, like so again, that was 2020. This is now going on 8 years really since I had made my last Fugos.
Mm-hmm.
And these people just reached out of the blue, and it was unreal. It was cool.
That is cool.
You just never know. Again, with visual media, it never goes away. And the iron might have cooled, but it's never ice cold because it could always heat back up.
I like that. Out of curiosity, I've always gotten the impression, and I could be completely wrong, that you are extraordinarily comfortable in your own skin. You don't give a flying fuck what anyone thinks about you. And I don't know if you're good at hiding insecurities or you just are that way. Where do you get that confidence? Where do you come up with the I don't give a fuck attitude, but like you've maintained that for the 20 plus years that I've known you?
I don't know if I don't really care, and it's not that I don't give a fuck. It's that, and I've recently, I think maybe it's kind of settling in and settling down and getting older and maybe a little more mature. I've kind of backed off a little bit on that because a lot of it is, let's say we're all in a room, right? There's like 10 people in a room. Everybody hates the 10th person.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't want them there. They're annoying. They smell bad. They have bad breath. Whatever it may be. Nobody wants to say anything. I was the one that would be like, I would say it to them, you know?
Yeah.
And it wasn't always something so extreme and negative, but like I just wasn't afraid. Not that I wasn't afraid, because there is like this sense of fear, but like I was willing to be the one to do it in my mind. I'm like, someone has to do the dirty work. It will be me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it came at, when I first started working. I remember my company years ago at a different ad agency. They had an employee of the month thing, and it's a huge agency too.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I started a petition for my supervisor, who's a great dude. And I said, this guy should win it. And I had so many people were sending in emails to the official whatever channel of, hey, who should be the the MVP of the month. And they gave it to someone else. And it was a lady who worked in like the archive room. And it was kind of like, who? Like no one really knew who this person was. And I remember I saw the president of the company out at a bar one night, and I called him out on it. I was like, how could you do this? And like, I wasn't even drunk or anything stupid like that. I was just like brazen. I'm like, how could you do this? Like, why would you do this? Like, blah, blah, blah. And like, he was very gracious with his time, and he gave me his explanation, which I didn't agree with at the time. And I was like, well, whatever. But it was a thing. I was like, I just had this probably wrongly placed self-righteousness in a way, you know? Sometimes wrong, sometimes maybe not, but I've always never been afraid to fall on my sword, right?
Or your face.
And I think the last years, and then the last few years, I've just been like, you know what, is this even worth it? Like, you know, it's hurt my career in some ways because I'll be the one that speaks up, and nobody likes, you know, they say the squeaky wheel gets the grease, but nobody likes that person either, you know? At least from a management perspective. Like, you're not going to go up if you're the nag, the complainer, you know, whatever the word is.
Yeah.
So it's hurt me professionally. I know it's definitely hurt me personally because, you know, my relationships and stuff over time. And, you know, in a way, like, I've kind of mellowed out. So, again, I don't know if it's really just, you know, that I don't care. It's just that I've never really been afraid of consequences when I thought I was in the right.
I like that. It's an important lesson because I feel like for most of my working career, personal life, etc., like I've been a very, you know, without care, you know, without worry type life. Like, I'll say similar things, not give a fuck. And I was never quite sure how much of that was for fear of consequence or just, you know, stalwart belief in myself that if this doesn't work out, something else will, right? Like, I say that all the time to people that I talk with. I was like, listen, I don't think this podcast is going to get picked up and I'm going to be getting 100,000 listeners every episode, but I'm confident in what I'm doing. I'm enjoying the conversations that I'm having. And if someone can benefit by listening to 5 minutes of this, all the more better. At the end of the day, it's for me. It's not for anyone else. And I think a lot of people don't necessarily live their life that way. They're way too afraid of the consequences. They worry extremely hard on the wreckage of the future when there's things out of their control that they can't necessarily, you know, forecast or worry about.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, that's the other thing. And we haven't even touched on the Navy yet, but that's kind of where that comes from too, for me. You know, like I said, so I guess not being afraid to fall on my sword and not being afraid of being the bad guy was a lot of my motivations and, you know, what I do. But there is that thing of like, you know what, like, you got to seize it. You just got to take the day by the balls, I guess, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, with the Navy specifically, this was a thing that, and I'm only going into the reserves.
Sure.
So it's not like I'm just
active military, right?
Running off into, you know, the Middle East or anything like that.
Right.
You know, it's a thing that's been kind of on my mind for a few years, and I mean, it was never the right time.
I hate to interrupt you. I remember vividly having a conversation with you at like Francesca's or something at lunch when we were working at the Devils or McQuarters or something, and you were like, I just want to fucking quit and join the Navy. And I'm like, dude, what? Like, we're at war with Iraq. What the fuck are you talking about? You want to quit your job and join the Navy? So I wasn't super shocked when you told me. And plus, like, you've also always been a super fit guy. Like, how many marathons and how many states did you run? I mean, it was something like crazy, like 10 marathons in 10 states or something.
I was 9. It was 9 marathons in as many states.
Yeah.
I was on my 10th before my daughter was born, and I was injured, and so I think she was really sick that weekend, and so I skipped it. And it was close, too. It was in Hartford, Connecticut, and I ended up bailing on it, and I've never run one since.
Well, that's 9 more than I've ever run, so.
But my goal was to do one in every state, and my IT band has never really healed up from when I got injured in the last one right before she was born. And that was in Minneapolis. It was the Minneapolis-St. Paul Marathon, and I remember I had to walk the last 3 miles.
Oh,
wow.
Wow.
So much pain.
Can you
It hurt to straighten my leg, it hurt to bend my leg, it hurt to run, it hurt to walk, everything hurt.
Can you...
And I crossed the finish line at 3 hours and 18 minutes, which...
So, pretty brisk.
was furious. I was furious. I had never beaten... My fastest time, I think, was like 3:06 or 3:07.
Wow.
I had never had a sub 3 hour marathon, and that was it. I walked the last 3 miles and was at 3:18.
That's incredible.
It's actually still, it's a thing that haunts me, and it's not my fault. And this is part of the reason why I am the way I am, because things like this haunt me that I know for a fact intellectually there was nothing I could do about it. It's out of my control, but it still burns me.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think everybody has that. Can you quickly tell the story of proposing to your now wife? Because it involves one of those 9 marathons.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So that was actually the one right before. That was my 8th. So Minneapolis was my 9th. Atlanta, Georgia was my 8th. And I ran the entire marathon with a wedding ring in my hand in the box. I crossed the finish line. I'm dog tired. That was
sweaty,
a rough one.
smelly.
It was holding the box the whole time for some reason. It just changes your gait a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, and you're switching it between hands. Like, I'd never really run with anything in my hands. I don't even run with, like, those little Gatorade goo packets. Like, nothing. And I remember a photographer was there. I said, hey, you want to get the best photo you're going to get today? And he goes, yeah. And I just showed him the ring. I go, we got to find my wife. Or we got to find my girlfriend. And he's like, all right, where is she? What does she look like? I was like, just like a big burly dude, hairy. And he's like, what? And I'm like, no. She's just this very dainty, tiny little brunette. And you know, we eventually found her pretty quick, and he had a good laugh about that. And not that there's anything wrong with
of course not. Of course not.
Marrying a big hairy dude. If you're another dude, like, I don't care.
Yeah.
But it was just funny. You know, it was funny.
That is funny.
So we have a picture of me getting down one knee, like looking like total garbage. Like I've got like a vein going from like the middle of my forehead all the way across my face.
And did you have Jesus Christ hair at that time?
Yes, I had long Jesus hair at that time. My daughter loved the story too of me being in New York City, walking out of Grand Central Station. So I used to live in the city. It's a thing that I miss immensely.
Really?
Living in the city.
I'm so surprised to hear you say that.
I'm not a suburbs guy, dude. I don't like the suburbs. I am much more of a city person.
Interesting.
So when it was really hot, though, in the summertime, like I figured out this way to cut through so many buildings to just minimize my time outdoors of having mystery water falling on my head. And I'm walking out of Grand Central Station, and there was a woman who I'm assuming she was homeless. She's just kind of very shabby looking. And I see her in the distance, like maybe 20 feet away from me, in front of me. And we're just locked eyes, just staring at each other. And, you know, my hair is long, and I've kind of got like a scraggly goatee kind of thing, just unshaven. And she looks at me, and as I get closer, her eyes get like real wide. And and she goes, "Get away from me, you damn werewolf!" Screams it at the top of her lungs. I mean, it takes a lot, I think, for Manhattan to stop and turn around. This was not one of those. No one stopped and turned around. It was just me and her.
Oh, my God. And, I thought she was going to scream, Jesus.
Screaming at the top of her lungs. Get away from me, you damn werewolf. But my daughter loves hearing that story. So every time I go near her and she doesn't want to be away, she doesn't want to be by me, in this cute little girl voice, says, "Get away from me, you damn werewolf."
She is so adorable. I think you, more so than any other friend of mine, has like the craziest stories like that exact story. I feel like so many times you tell me shit that I'm just like, dude, that's just not true. Like, that's not a real story. You're a creative guy. You completely made that up. What's like the one thing that you think is the craziest thing that's ever happened to you?
Man, that is tough because honestly, there are times where people tell me, like friends I haven't seen in a long time or whatever, or honestly, even acquaintances, people I think I'm meeting for the first time. They're like, "Hey, I remember that time that you and blah 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 and this happened." I'm like, "Dude, you're telling me that happened and then I did that? Okay, I guess I'll take your word for it. If you say it happened, I'm gonna have to believe you because I don't remember that." Man, what is the craziest thing? I don't know. In some ways, starting a family.
Yeah. Well, I was going to get to that later. I was going to get to the fatherhood thing later. One story that stuck out in my mind is like you said, you're a smart guy, and you definitely work smarter than harder, but
For sure.
in my opinion, you maneuvered one of the greatest finesses in the history of finesses by somehow convincing our employer that you needed to go to the Olympics. And to me, that is without question the craziest thing on the planet, because there's absolutely no logical reason why marketing manager, marketing whatever, graphic designer of the New Jersey Devils needed to go to the Olympics.
It was marketing coordinator.
Coordinator.
But the thing is, it wasn't on their dime.
Oh, it wasn't?
No, I was asked. That's actually probably the craziest thing. I can't believe I just spaced on that. Cameron Hughes, who is a good friend of mine now and is a professional super fan. You may have seen him tossing T-shirts at an arena near you.
Mm-hmm.
He was at the Devils. You know, he would come to the games and stuff, and he had a handler who either was sick one day or just didn't want to do it. I think they didn't really vibe with each other, with, you know, our guy and him. And it was like a game day. Hey, Scott, will you go around with this guy Cameron tonight? Yeah, sure, no problem. I don't care. And, you know, we met and we were chatting, and, you know, I don't remember what it was, but right away we got into hockey stats. And I think that this guy, being a Canadian and a diehard hockey fan, saw that I wasn't just some kid working at a hockey team in New Jersey. I was a hockey fan who happened to work at the hockey team in New Jersey.
Right.
And we just bonded, you know, and we became friends. And then the next time he was there, I went with him again because I guess he requested me or it went well or whatever. And I certainly didn't mind. I didn't have any other game day responsibilities, really. And it was like a great, you know, it was a great time. And, you know, I'd see him, we'd hang out. And then as the year went on, you know, he knew I was a designer by day. He had asked me, he said, look, I'm going to do a pitch for the Winter Olympics. Can you design, like, the presentation for me? Just like a PDF or a PowerPoint or whatever. I go, yeah, sure. So I put this together for him. I really thought nothing of it. And a few weeks go by, and this is like in the fall, I guess it was. Then he calls me and says, hey, I got the gig. I go, congratulations, man. That's awesome. Like, really cool. So now you can pay me some money for this. And his reply was something along the lines of, he's like, well, yeah. And he's like, I was thinking, I actually would like to pay you by having you come out and be my handler and my assistant at the Olympics. And I was like, what? And he's like, listen, though, like, there's a catch. He's like, you know, I'll pay your flight, your room, your board, your food, all that's taken care of, but I just won't be able to pay you any money. And I said, oh, yeah, let me think about that. Okay. Like, I mean.
Yeah.
Like,
right,
that's a bad deal? Come on.
So I take it back. It wasn't a finesse. It was just pure dumb luck.
Well, the finesse was actually the Devils were only going to let me go initially because I had a couple of vacation days.
Mm-hmm.
And like, well, you take your vacation days, but you got to come back after that. And it ended up being like, well, I'm going to go to Vancouver on Saturday and come back on Tuesday.
Yeah, right.
And I don't think the men's games even started. It was the women's games started right away, but the men's games started later that week.
Right.
And I was like, that's crazy. I'm like, there's nothing even going on here because all our players are in the Olympics.
Yeah, right.
and I remember it was, you know, it was a source of contention. I was really annoyed, and like I was going to quit over that. I really was.
I remember.
I was like, I'm going. Like I go, I don't care. I'm going. Like, this is ridiculous that they're going to take this opportunity away from me because I don't know if it was like people were upset or jealous or whatever that, you know, I was the one going or well, because there really was nothing going on. And I actually remember someone said to me, like, well, we got to gear up for the playoffs and we got to get ready for the playoffs. And I said that I called it out. I was like, it's bullshit because it's February and I agree. Gearing up for the playoffs and getting prepped for that would be not the worst idea in the world, but we haven't done that in the 3 years I've been here, so don't even pretend that we're doing that this week.
Yeah, right.
In February. You know, like that was just such a bogus thing to me. And that's the thing where it's like I am not afraid to stand up for myself and fall on my sword. And like I say, I'm not afraid to be the bad guy. And that's one of those times that I don't even look back and say, maybe I should have held back a little. I'm glad I stood my ground there, you know?
Oh, I completely agree.
And then ultimately, it got higher up and higher up, and they said, look, we're going to let you go, but you're going to work for us while you're there too, so send us pictures and this stuff. And I said, okay, that's fine. And that's how that worked out. So the team got some, I guess, a little bit of exclusive content, and, it was, like, honestly, the best time ever. I bid a gold medal.
I know.
A friend that I've made, like, who's become a lifelong friend now, that I made while we were up in Vancouver. He was
French
another
guy, right?
one of, like, the T-shirt tossers. He's Canadian. He's like,
okay. I thought he was from Montreal for some reason. Yeah.
No, Rob. What's up, Robbie? He
was at your wedding.
He and I after. Yeah.
Yeah, he was at my table. That's why I remembered him.
Yes. Yeah. He and I, after the gold medal game for the women's hockey, which I think was like a Thursday night, maybe a Friday, and the men's was on Saturday. After the gold medal game, we were out and about, and we're just bar hopping all over. And then we found the bar that the Canadian women hockey team, were hanging out in. And he was like, let's try and get in. And I remember it was, I can't remember her name. I want to say it's Haley Wickenheiser. Is that her name?
It sounds familiar.
She was like the
MVP.
Like the best player of at that time for women's hockey. She was outside with a couple of the other women, and they were just kind of going back in, and Rob catches the door where it's like 3 finger lengths away from closing. And he looks at me with like this, oh, we're in. And we just walked right in, and we just hung out, and it was awesome. Like, we're wearing the gold medals, we're kissing the gold medals, we're biting the gold medals. I mean, that was a great time. It was a great time.
I mean, yeah, I had FOMO. We were coworkers, and you were in Vancouver, and I was in New Jersey. The other crazy thing that I'm surprised you didn't mention was, of the 2 people on the podcast tonight, one of the 2 of us have worked on a legitimate Hollywood movie, and it's not me. And I don't know if you want to talk about it, but again,
yeah, why not? We can. I'm game.
I was so sure when we became friends. We worked together before really being friends, and whatever. Your brother's one of my best friends, and then our friendship started as coworkers. I was confident that for some reason you stepped in shit more than any other human being on planet Earth.
It's probably true.
It is true. I mean, it's just true. And to that extent, I need the backstory and the retelling of how you ended up working on a fucking Kevin Smith movie.
Well, this also ties back into the Devils. Kevin Smith had come to a couple of games, and again, they needed somebody to walk him around, be his chaperone, I guess.
Take him to a suite.
Not bodyguard. I don't fit the bill of bodyguard, so I don't know. I just like the chaperone.
Yeah, right.
But I walked around with him, and we would talk, and we talked hockey a little bit, and I'm a big comic book guy, so we bonded over comics. And it's funny because, that was it. It was a cool moment, and that was it. And I think there were a couple times, actually, he came. So I bumped into him more than once.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the playoffs now of 2000. So now this is the same year as the Olympics. This is 2010. Like, 2010 truly was like the apex of my life.
You peaked.
In a lot of ways. What's that?
I said you peaked. 2010.
Yeah, I think so.
All downhill.
I mean, that was my first marathon. Was the New York City Marathon. Was that November? The Olympics started the year. In between the two was the movie.
Yeah.
So it was my last week at the Devils. I think we were the first playoff game, or no, because I was already gone by the playoffs. But we were like kind of in clinch mode or jockeying for a seeding position at the end of the regular season. When those games either don't matter at all or they really matter.
Mm-hmm.
And you kind of got that playoff vibe, which I miss. I miss being in an arena.
Yeah.
And just experiencing that, hearing people, even like now, watching games on TV, it's not the same when really,
Oh, for
I guess
sure.
they're at like, 10, 20% capacity. It's not the same.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm in the hallway with a bunch of like rally towels or something that I was bringing somewhere, and he sees me. I mean, he goes, Scott. I'm like, what? who is this? And I'm like, oh. I was like, hey, how's it going, Kevin?
First name basis.
He's like, how you doing, man? I'm like, I'm doing good. How are you? And, we were talking for a minute, and I said, this is actually my last week or my last month or whatever it was. I'm leaving. He's like, what are you doing? I said, I'm going to freelance, which was true. I had gotten, like, a really good gig as a permanent freelancer, working for my old boss, the one that I fought for that I thought should have been MVP of, whatever, years ago. So I guess that kind of came back in a good way for me, too, because I know he knows that I kind of stood up for him and battled for him. So,
he's screaming your name.
I'm going to go do this thing. And, it's better pay, it's less hours, which is great. And he's like, well, listen, we're going to shoot a movie this summer. Why don't you come work on it if you're not doing anything? And I go, do what? And he's like, we'll figure something out. I said, all right, cool. And from there, I don't even remember how we exchanged contact because I didn't have his phone number or anything like that. He must have written down his email or something, and I emailed him. And I got in touch with his producer on the movie, and, we kind of did like a little back and forth, and it seemed like it was going to happen right away, and then it wasn't going to happen, and it kept getting pushed back, and then finally, it was like the end of July. He was like, hey, we're going to start shooting in August. And can you come out to California? I go, yes, I'll be there. And it ended up being the end of August. It was Labor Day weekend. I was lifeguarding on the weekends, working in the city during the week. I mean, this is like I said, this is the apex of life. Single guy, like nothing to worry about, getting tan all weekend, hanging out in the city during the week, making decent money. And I hopped on a plane. We were actually outside of LA, a town called Whittier, and I was looking for places to stay because I had to just put up my own room and board, obviously. And everywhere was super expensive. So I ended up finding on Craigslist, a woman says she's looking for a roommate. I say, great. 2 days before I'm supposed to leave, she, I think, shot me an email maybe a call. I don't remember. Probably an email, though. It says, hey, look, sorry, there's been a change of plans. I'm pregnant. I'm not going to be looking to have a roommate. I'm setting up the other room for the baby. And I said, I'm only going to be there for a few months. Your baby's not going to be there, like, for 9. We have time. Like, I need a place to stay. Like, I don't know what you want me to do. You're telling me this. I'm supposed to come on 2 days. Like, I literally, the plan I had known, I was only going to be there for 2 months. I was going to be there for September and October, possibly early November, but I was going to figure something out. So she's like, well, my parents live down the road. You could stay with them. I'm like, what? So, I mean, I'm in a rock and a hard place. Like, all right, so I'm staying with this family. So they were this Armenian family. The wife was a fortune teller.
Oh, my God.
The father was a trucker. Now, this was 2010, so coming out of the recession, he lost his trucking job, and so he's been out of work for 2 years. Spoke no English. My new sister's name was Louisa because she still lived there. And there was a brother, and I was staying in the brother's room. And I said, well, where is the brother? Well, he's in jail. Oh, okay. You don't have to tell me why. And I didn't even finish saying you don't have to tell me why. He was in a gang.
Oh,
all right, well, thanks for telling me that. I'm sleeping in the twin bed of a convicted felon.
How did I never hear this story?
All his baseball trophies on the wall of his blue room.
And one bloody bat in the corner.
and they had this evil Dalmatian who was called Spot. They were not very creative. And this dog was blind.
Oh.
And I had to sneak around him every time I came home because he was always locked in the garage, and the garage was always open, and he just had like a chain on him or whatever.
Ooh.
And he would just get up and just start like looking for blood. So I had to like go, and my room was literally on the other side of the garage, and a lot of times I didn't want to see my Armenian dad as I walked through the house, so I was just trying to sneak into the garage. but then have to avoid getting bitten by this evil blind dog. Oh man, it was wild. I remember my mom read me my tea leaves one time. I still have it written down, but I don't remember where it is. I should probably check that out because I don't remember what came true and what didn't. But it was cool. You know, she kept telling me that I was going to keep working for somebody named LL. Their initials were LL, which I thought was very weird because we both know who LL is.
But you did work for LL.
I did, and I've done some stuff for them recently too. So I don't know if maybe there's just like an eternal connection there or not. I don't know.
That's pretty cool. We'll jump off air and I'll tell you my favorite LL story because it is just one of the best. You were there, but yeah, we will rehash that offline. I absolutely adore Kevin Smith. He's a New Jersey treasure. He's just one of the coolest fucking guys. He's got such a great positive outlook on life, and I find it incredibly odd / unique that you were a part of what could only be classified as one of the most bizarre movies ever made.
So the film was Red State, and honestly, I'm a brutally honest person, right? You know this.
Yeah.
I like that movie.
No, you don't.
And it's not because I was there.
No, you don't.
I do.
What is?
I give him so much credit.
Give me one redeeming quality about that film. Any.
He stretched really far out of his comfort zone, and he tried something new.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm a gigantic Kevin Smith fan. I fucking love the guy. If I could get him on the podcast, my life.
It's got a great cast.
Yeah, it's got a great cast. The story was so bad.
I think some of that may come down to editing. Again, maybe I am a little more biased than I want to admit here because, I'd seen the script like weeks in advance. I'd read all the rewrites. I actually have, they call them dailies. Mm-hmm. They're like little mini scripts that you get every day, and they'll have all the rewrites on there. I have so many of those.
That's cool.
In a folder somewhere. It is cool. It's like a cool little keepsake.
For sure.
So all these different things. I remember, just the surreal moment of standing at catering, talking about the half-life of a Twinkie with Kevin Pollak.
This is what I'm saying. Like, for so much of our friendship, I've just seen you as this human being that just things were just dropped into your lap and just like hilarious, unbelievable, blind, dumb luck.
But listen, so this is where I said earlier, this all ties back, and I said two things, that I'm going through a midlife crisis and that I feel like I'm behind the 8 ball, and because things came too easy. These things you're right, these things really did fall into my lap, undeservingly so. Like, I would just walk down the street and be like, hey, I like that guy.
I don't know about.
Let's have him look up to me.
I want to unpack that for a second. I don't necessarily think undeservingly so. Like, when you were put in these situations, you performed, you worked hard, you busted your ass. Like, it's not like you just took these opportunities to rest on your laurels and do nothing when you got there and just fuck around. Like, you worked in all those situations. So
that is true.
While the opportunity did drop out of thin air into your lap, you made the most of those opportunities.
Yeah, I did. And it's funny, like, working on the movie, like, I had a whole career lined up. And I just, like, I remember the props master wanted me to come work for him. Mm-hmm. And he wanted me to go to Mississippi on some other movie. And I didn't want to do it because I was making so much money freelancing at my advertising job in New York that it wasn't worth it to me.
Sure.
And same thing, the assistant director wanted me to be under his wing. He's like, you started as a PA, production assistant, and then I don't remember what the pecking order was, but he's like, eventually you do this. And I remember just politely saying, like, Mark, I really appreciate that. I don't think this is for me. And he said something along the lines of, all the smart people get out of here.
It's very honest.
Which, was flattering. But, like, it really, like, honestly, Hollywood sounds super glamorous. For me personally, it was too slow. It was so much hurry up and wait. Mm-hmm. It was, you do your one specialized task, because, again, super unionized, so you're not allowed to do anything outside of your purview.
Right.
So my job is to just pick up this cup. I'm going to pick up this cup, and that's it.
Right.
I can't pick up your plate. I can't touch the fork. And so how hard is that? It's a very simple job. I do that one thing, and now I sit around for an hour, and I wait for someone to tell me to do something again. And you can't go anywhere because you have to stay there. It got to a point where like I would bring a book with me in my pocket, like like my cargo shorts or whatever. And I just sit there and I'd read a book. Because these were long days. They're like 12, 13-hour days sometimes. But it's just like I didn't feel any sense of accomplishment at the end of the day.
That's fair. I mean, listen.
Go
ahead.
I would say partly because of I was the smallest cog on the wheel.
Mm-hmm.
Where the ship was. The wheel was still going to turn whether I was there or not.
Sure.
But at the same time, I was just like, I don't know, this just isn't for me. And I'm glad that I got that out of my system because it's something I really thought in my head, as a lot of people do, I think, that they want to go there, they want to do that, they want to do that kind of stuff, they want to work in Hollywood.
Sure.
Like, man, this is just a little dull.
Well, it's nice. So
I'm super grateful for the experience, but that was it.
That's cool. I mean, obviously, like I said, prior to bringing up those two instances, you've had some ridiculously crazy things happen in your life. And, I don't know if it's the universe paying you back for your childhood or what it might be. But I find you to be one of the most unique people that I know. And I think you got a good heart and you're a good dude. What are you most proud of that you've done in your life?
Oh, man. That's a good question. I mean, if you ask me in 20 years, it'll probably be, hopefully it's because my kids did something good. Mm-hmm. And I want to say, well, maybe I played some sort of part in them getting here. And maybe it was because they're like, our dad was such a piece of crap. I vowed to be such a better person than him.
I doubt that.
And if that's it, then it might be that.
I doubt that.
But they're too young for me to really say that, I mean, obviously I love them and they're probably my greatest achievement. Mm-hmm. And they're my greatest contribution, right? Mm-hmm. That's what it is. But I also had very little to do with that. Most of that is my wife's work.
Sure.
Literally and figuratively, I mean, yeah. The whole process. I made a donation and then I just peaced out for a little bit.
I made a donation.
So I can't even really lay claim to that.
Fair.
But there are a few things so I'm not afraid to push myself to crazy boundaries. Again, I'm 39 years old. I cannot wait to go to boot camp to see how I stack up against these literal kids mm-hmm. who could be my children age-wise, like 20 years younger than me. Mm-hmm. And I want to see what happens.
So are you most proud of taking a big risk in your life?
I mean, that's more of like a general theme. Mm-hmm. And this would be a specific example of that. Another one would be, I bought a house when I was probably too early to buy a house, mm-hmm. technically, and like mature-wise. Mm-hmm. I wasn't ready to settle down, and I thought I was just because society said this is what you do,
Yep.
Or just growing up in a time where it was like, okay, high school sweetheart or college sweetheart, whatever it is, you meet a girl, you get a job, you settle down, you start a family. I wasn't in that space at all, but I thought because I was in my mid-20s that's what you did.
100%.
And so that's what I started doing, and it blew up in my face. Thank God it did. Mm-hmm. I was dating a girl who, honestly, I didn't even treat that well. And she broke up with me, and she should have, and I would have. And, it sent me kind of down to a funk. Mm-hmm. But we were supposed to move into this house together. We never did it. Now I'm stuck with the house. I was the one who put the bill. So I rented it out, and that's when I moved into the city. And now fast forward to, I've now left the city to go work on this movie. I came back for a few months, and now the idea is in my head, well, I was not in the city, and my house was rented, and I was actually doing better off that way because I wasn't paying rent. Mm-hmm. Because I was only paying this Armenian family like $200. And I'm not going to find that same situation here, but maybe I don't need that.
Sure.
So I ended up giving up my apartment outright because I was just subletting it at the time to someone else. and I just chose to be homeless. And I would go to the gym every morning and work out. I had a huge bag of clothes that I just left, and I had this massive 5-drawer filing cabinet at work that I took all the files out and I threw them away, and I just put all my clothes in there.
Mm-hmm.
So I sort of lived in my office, and then, in the winter, and then I ended up just becoming like a night creeper of the city, like a night person. Like they say it's a city you never sleep. Nah, it's a very different city. It's a weird place.
Yeah.
After like midnight.
This would be classified as the part of our friendship where, as a friend, I was most worried for you because when you came back, when you came back from California,
I had it under control.
You did. No,
yeah.
To be fair, you did, and you made it work better than I'm sure any other person possibly could, because you know these things typically end up falling into place for you.
I ended up paying off a house.
Yeah.
I paid off a freaking house by choosing to go homeless.
Yeah.
And
to be fair, it's not as if you were sleeping outside homeless.
Sometimes I did.
Very rarely.
Because there were days where it was super busy in the office late at night, and I couldn't let anyone know what I was doing, that I was sleeping on the couch in the office.
Yeah.
Late at night. So there would be times where I would wait everyone out, and I'd be like dog ass tired, like exhausted. And I'm like, I can't keep my eyes open anymore. And I'd be like, I gotta leave. And I would just go out somewhere, and I would go to Herald Square, where, there'd be a ton of like real homeless people, people who had nowhere to go, people who had no jobs. And they're sleeping on benches. And I mean, you don't really get a lot of sleep that way. You sleep with one eye open.
Yeah.
You sit on a bench, put your head on the table, and you close your eyes, and you just, no one ever bothered me, but you just hope. But a lot of times you end up being up all night. And then the next morning, again, first thing, I'd be at the gym because I would pack my clothes at work before I left, whatever I needed in my bag. I'd walk around this bag all over the city, and I'd go to the gym, I'd shower, I'd change. And then a lot of times after that, you'd sleep during the day in the park. I mean, there's a rock in Central Park that I always say is my rock. There's a section of the park called like the Fountain of Bethesda. It's actually a popular place. You might know it. It's like Author's Walk.
Yeah.
So it's like a straight path, and there's all these statues of authors.
Yep.
And it opens up into like this big stairwell that you go down, and then there's an archway, and a lot of wedding photographs happen there under the archway and stuff.
Yeah,
and as you get under the archway on the other side, there's a fountain, and there's like a little pond or a lake or something there.
Mm-hmm.
If you make a left, it kind of goes steeply up. You go up, there's a huge rock. I would just go there and sleep on that rock all day until it was time for me to go to work. Now in the winter, or when it was raining, that was tough.
Sure.
So that's when I would go to Lincoln Center Movie Theater. First thing in the morning, 9 o'clock, 9:30 showing, $6. And I would stay there all day and just theater hop. And honestly, maybe watch one movie, and then the rest I would just sleep in a seat for the rest. Just to catch some Z's.
Such a, honestly, peculiar human being, Scott Modrzynski. Just the things that we discuss. I mean, we talk every couple of weeks, or almost every week, and just the things that you have to tell me truly, really never cease to amaze me. And I've got two more questions that I want to answer. The first one's a little bit deep, so I'll start with the second one. What would you say is like your biggest regret?
I wish I was nicer.
I think that's something you could change. It's never too late.
That?
It's not something you could change.
No,
it's never too late.
But no, it's never too late going forward. But what happened, you know? And that's kind of where I say, like, maybe I wish I wasn't as abrasive or so willing to fall on my sword.
I can relate to that. I think a lot of times, I don't know if I regret not caring as much about things, but I do wish that my feelings or lack thereof didn't impact people the way that they did in my past. And it's something that I consciously work on moving forward. Being a nicer, more wholesome, but better version of myself. It's a
struggle.
It is a struggle. I mean, I think it's just, you live a life, and there's a lot of good days, there's a lot of bad days, and you're constantly impressed upon you, or the thought is impressed upon you that everyone's doing better, everyone's happier, and I'm just this miserable bag of shit. So it's easy to be a dick. It's easy to be a prick. And I think as I get older, I try to do that a lot less. I try to catch myself in the moments where I'm getting aggravated, where I'm getting angry over something that is so small. And
it's not worth it.
And go beyond it. But that's good. I mean, I think part of the cognitive ability for you to be like, I wish I was nicer when I was younger, will greatly impact, you moving forward. So it's a step in the right direction.
Well, I hope so. I mean, I've always found it easy to be nice to strangers, easier to be nicer to strangers than it is to people I know.
I know.
Is that weird?
I don't know.
Is that normal, or is that it's either very normal or very weird? It's one or the other.
It's probably a bit of both. But it was something that always surprised me about you, because you could be such a dick for no reason and then like meet a complete stranger and they were your best friend.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like we're on a clean slate, and I feel like if I know you, well, you just have to get over it.
That's fair.
Because we're so close. Like I really think this. Like, and other people don't think this, and the people close to me don't think this, and I think that's the thing that I've started to learn, and I need to adapt to that. Where it's like, if I tell you to go fuck off, well, maybe you're not going to get over it. Maybe that's really going to hurt you. And I just shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't say fuck off and then, in a few days everything's going to be cool again.
Yeah.
Maybe I should just not do that in the first place.
It's a good thought process. It's definitely a good thought process moving forward for sure. Obviously we've been on the line for about an hour now, and I want to try to wrap things up shortly. And this is the most loaded question that I have, but I'm just genuinely curious as to whether you have a extremely morbid outlook on an afterlife or a positive one. So my question is, what do you think happens when we die?
I don't know.
Well, I know you don't know.
I don't even know what I think, though, to be honest. Like, there's that wish fulfillment center of your brain, your body, your heart, whatever, that when I die, what I hope happens, I hope that I am somehow cognizant and aware of all the great moments of my life simultaneously. Hanging out with my son while he's playing with Legos. And honestly, not even hanging out with him, watching him. That he doesn't know that I'm watching, and watching him play. Drawing with my daughter, the Stanley Cups with my dad. Random Christmas mornings that I could tell you everything that I got that day. My mom taking me to the doctor. Weird stuff. And especially like when I was very young, both my parents were at work. My grandmother, who lived with me most of my life, was also working, and I stayed all day with my grandfather. Those are times that I have just like snippets of memories. Yeah. And what I would love to have happen is to just have all of that flooding at the same time, simultaneously, while me and him are together again, and I'm 3 years old forever.
I got to be honest, Scott. That was an incredibly beautiful thing that you just said, and I got to give you credit for that. That was very touching. That was nice.
Oh, well, I'm glad.
I like that. This has been a tremendous conversation, as most of ours are. I like to wrap things up at the end of every episode, giving everyone a recommendation for something. Could be a book, could be a podcast, a movie, a TV show, a comic book, literally whatever comes to mind. Could be a food item at the food store. What's one recommendation you have for the listeners today?
I think everybody should watch the movie Red State by Kevin Smith.
I'm going to tweet this podcast at Kevin. I just would love to have him on sometime. I would love for him to hear what you think about this wonderful piece of shit that he made. And again, I fucking love you, Kevin. If you ever hear this, you're an amazing human being, and he's not.
I also enjoyed Tusk.
Oh, I haven't seen it, but I just added it to my up next, literally yesterday.
Well, we're gonna have to reconnect, and maybe we'll do like a live viewing.
Oh, that'd be fun. My recommendation is going to be a movie that I would like you to watch. It's called Spontaneous. It's on Hulu. Have you seen it yet?
I don't have Hulu.
Okay, I'll give you my password.
Send me the password.
Yeah, I'll give you my password. It is very endearing, very fucking bizarre, but definitely worth the 2-ish hours that it goes on. And the only thing that I will tell you about the movie, and the entire movie I loved, but within the first 30 some odd seconds of the film, a high school student spontaneously combusts.
Oh.
And the premise is just so ridiculous, but it works in such a bizarre, heartwarming way that I hope everyone sees it. I hope whoever wrote it, whoever directed it, produced it, whatever, I hope they get a ton of positive feedback, because it was so weird, but so good.
Can I change my answer now?
Sure.
I mean, definitely watch Red State, but definitely watch Tammy and the T-Rex on Amazon Prime.
I have no idea what that is.
In the first 5 minutes, Paul Walker and some goon in the mullet get into a dick-squeezing fight.
Is that your favorite movie?
This week.
Scott Modrzynski, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to link your Instagram below. Obviously, you won't be posting much, coming soon. I'll link the website for your portfolio. Dude, you're one of my good friends. I love you. I wish you nothing but happiness and success. And thank you so much for joining me today.
You're a good boy.
Thanks, Scott.
All right, man. I love you too. Be well, buddy.
Thank you.